What is pneumonia? Pneumonia can be defined as the inflammation of the lungs resulting in the accumulation of fluid in the alveoli. So what does that mean? Well, to explain that, first we will look at the healthy lung. In the healthy lung, air goes through the trachea where it then travels down one of the two bronchi. The bronchi continues to branch off into gradually smaller airways until it reaches the bronchioles and then the alveolar sacs. The alveolar sacs are comprised of clusters of air sacs called alveoli. The alveolar walls are made of simple squamous epithelium, also known as type 1 alveolar cells, a basement membrane, and pulmonary capillaries. Altogether, they form a respiratory membrane. This is where the exchange of gases occurs. When the alveoli fill with air, oxygen diffuses through the respiratory membrane via simple diffusion and binds to the hemoglobin found in red blood cells. As the oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the pulmonary capillaries, the carbon dioxide that is bound to the hemoglobin diffuses from the pulmonary capillaries to the alveoli. The respiratory system also plays an important role in regulating the body's acid-base balance. It eliminates carbon dioxide and acid from the blood while replenishing oxygen. From there, it is expelled from the lungs. The alveoli also contain alveolar macrophages and type 2 alveolar cells. Both of these cells play a part in immunity. Additionally, type 2 alveolar cells secrete a substance called surfactant. Surfactant is important because it reduces the amount of energy needed to expand the lungs, and it discourages alveolar collapse by decreasing the surface tension of fluid on the alveolar walls. Pneumonia occurs when a pathogen enters the alveoli and causes the immune system to overreact. The pulmonary capillaries start to leak fluid into the alveoli, and this inhibits the exchanges of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Mucus production is also increased, and this further inhibits the exchange of gases. The fluid that accumulates in the alveoli is called sputum, and the composition of the fluid varies depending on the pathogen that caused the pneumonia. Bacteria is the most common pathogen to cause pneumonia in adults, but pneumonia may also be caused by viruses or fungi. Some of the symptoms include cough, dark yellow, green, or red sputum, fever, chills, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, sharp chest pain, excess sweating, headache, loss of appetite, and low energy. People who are at a higher risk for developing pneumonia are people who have compromised immune systems. The treatment for pneumonia depends on the type. Bacterial pneumonia is usually treated with antibiotics, whereas viral pneumonia is usually treated with antiviral medication. People with pneumonia may also take medications to treat their symptoms. Pneumonia disrupts homeostasis by filling the air-filled spaces of the alveoli with fluid. This means that gas exchange cannot occur, causing hypoxia, which is a deficiency of oxygen in the tissues. Pneumonia also disrupts the regulation of the body's acid-base balance. Due to the respiratory system's impaired functioning, people with pneumonia may also experience respiratory acidosis. Respiratory acidosis is when carbon dioxide accumulates in the blood, causing a decrease in the blood's pH level.
It started with fever, sore throat, nausea, indigestion. Started about noon. By 7 o'clock that evening, I was extremely sick and didn't really get better for 6 months after that point. So I was diagnosed with pneumonia a month and a half to 2 months after I started getting sick. The first original diagnosis was meningitis, and mumps, strep throat, came up with quite a few other, because my symptoms were constantly changing every 2 or 3 days. It was impossible for them to diagnose, and blood work even came back with false positives for other diseases. So the symptoms with heavy fever, sore throat, inability to swallow, all those symptoms were bad, but once my lungs started to fill with fluid and they put me in the hospital, that's when I was in the hospital is when they started to diagnose me as viral pneumonia. By that point, my lungs were 60% full of fluid, according to the x-ray, and it only got worse. Because of my allergic reaction to erythromycin, they couldn't treat me, and so it was up to my own body to get better, which almost didn't happen. I was sick in the hospital for about a month and a half, and at one point the doctors had actually told my parents to start making arrangements for a funeral for myself, because they didn't think I was going to leave. I was on palliative care floor from the time I went into the hospital for about 2 months straight through this. The long-lasting effects of pneumonia on my body are because of the high fevers and my age. I became sterile, infertile, and scarred lung tissues caused lots of breathing problems and painful breathing during exercises.